Hey, how's it going guys? ZDEyE here. So today I wanted to give you my full review of the Outriders. First up, I want to mention that I have played Outriders on my PlayStation 5. So, this review is going to be specifically going towards that platform. So I don't have exactly the same experience as perhaps somebody else that played on the Xbox or the PC. Now, let's get into it. Now, as you have read the title of this video, there's one giant flaw that this game has that inevitably will fail. Again, that is still may perhaps be a possibility of what the developers could do to rectify this. Yet again, I some certain degree don't think they will be able to. I'll get into that, that's near the end of the video, and yeah, let's just get into a typical review and what I think about the game. So first up, I want to mention about the story. Even though we know this is a loot grinding kind of experience of a game, story isn't always going to be the main priority. And mind you, from the looter-based games such as this, it's actually one of the good ones of the story base. But again, don't let that fool you thinking that the story is good. It really isn't. It's typical, it's nothing special, and it's just very bland. Now, it does fall flat quite a lot of times, especially since the voice acting feels very wooden and does not feel along with the characters, at least personally not to me. But again, we have to consider this is not the priority, so I'm not going to be bashing about this in this game. But let's just continue. I want to mention that since you'll be playing this as a shooter, you will be going through different areas and different paths. And as such, this game is extremely linear. Now, you'll be basically going from one path to a different one, especially since you'll be transitioning from point area, I don't know, let's just call it an A area, going from point area B. Then there's just like you're in the gameplay, then you get fade to black, then you go into the cutscene, jump over the bridge, you fade to black again after you come back to the gameplay. Now there are questionable decisions, but we already know the answer to this. Why they did this? It's because they wanted to gather up the players who perhaps is in that area, so they will kind of confirm that they want to go to the next area, so they all stay together. I get that. Again, why would this decision? I'm sure there could have been different ways that you could approach this, but I digress. Now, the linearity in this game is not the issue at fault, but I definitely want to say that if you're playing this for the looter shooter, again, the world, the map itself, it's like where you be shooting, killing, and stuff like that. It's not bad, it really isn't. Now, again, I could get away from it saying that, okay, I'm not paying attention to that, okay? What I'm paying attention and what I want to get into now is the loot, okay? So, this game has pretty damn fantastic loot, especially with its variety and different abilities in their perks. Every time when you gain yourself a loot, there's our rarities. We are talking about looter shooter here, aren't we? So there's greens, there's purples, there's yellows. Yellows considered to be on a higher level, but especially if you gather up those yellows, man oh man, some of those yellows are very, very aesthetically pleasing with the look, but also very cool with the perks. Some of the weapons out there, they just have like an explosive rounds. Basically, they leave some kind of orb behind. When you kill an enemy, you shoot at that orb and then they cause an explosion. There's always these little quirks and interesting factors that the game has, and the loot that it has. It is pretty unique. Now, of course, we have to get into the gear progression themselves. So, upgrading your weapons or gear, almost anything is possible. You can upgrade rarity, like from going to level, not necessarily level what I mean with the color scheme, right? Of course you can upgrade. You can level it up. You can change mods, so you can have different perks and different, abilities that these weapons or gears can have. And also you can change the attributes for basically increasing the stats of that particular weapon or gear. See, these little things already makes this sort of a crafting experience in the game so much better. And a lot of games actually don't have very good or cohesive crafting. But this does it very well, does a very good job, in my opinion, of course. Okay, so these things that are the way kind of typical for a looter shooter, I gotta mention that so far as a looter shooter goes, is pretty damn good. But let's get into some of the negatives. So graphics is one of them. It's nothing really special, it's kind of more bland, washed out with gray color scheme. Even though you do go to visit different worlds, yet again, I think it may be because of the engine choice that they went with, but the game does not look that appealing, like at all. Even if you use the abilities and stuff like that, it does look kind of sort of flashy, but considering, again, this engine, I don't know, it doesn't look that appealing, at least not to me. Okay, so this is one of the bigger negatives I want to mention. Server instability and disconnects. Basically, one of the biggest reasons why you might want to wait on this game for quite a while. In fact, I would argue to say wait for a deal, a good deal, for the price to go down. Like, my encouragement for you, or recommendation I should say, just get this game on Game Pass if you have a Xbox, right? Or just wait for it to decrease in price, because full price for this game, especially now, it's not a good decision. Because of this choice, the instability and disconnects and stuff like that, anytime when you're playing a mission or you're trying to progress through the certain mission and you gathering gears and stuff like that, and if you get disconnected, you pretty much lose the loot, and also you pretty much have to restart that specific mission again. That sucks. And because of this decision alone, I actually went and just decided to go with a different world tier. Now, here's the good part I'll get into a little bit later about the world tier system. But I want to mention about the bugs and glitches that it has, such as like a HUD disappearing whenever you're starting up the game. It happened to me once or twice, even on PlayStation 5, but it wasn't like significant for me to just like, oh my god, I have to quit the game. There was always a way to go around it, but again, it is still inconvenient. Okay, now I want to touch on something regarding that a lot of people, for some odd dumb reason, saying it's like a very good thing. I think it's dumb. Okay, so the Outrider on the Twitter, specifically I'm talking about, they have been very transparent and always keeping us up to date whenever there were disconnects or server issues or server instability, and they're constantly been telling us, oh, we're working on this thing, and so please just wait it out a little bit longer, we're trying to identify the issue, give us a little bit more time. This is not transparency. Transparency if you're trying to solve the situation, but every hour whenever you reply with saying like, oh, we know about the situation, we're trying to resolve it, and pretty much always saying the same, well, differently every time, every hour or so, and yet a lot of people for some odd reason say like, oh, they're being very transparent, they're working hard. No, that's bullshit. That is bullshit. It's just one of the guys can just sit on the computer and fucking write this thing down and just keeping us up to date. Now, of course, it is good to see the updates and when the game's actually finally be working, so I don't actually have to turn on my PlayStation and wait for the damn thing to load. In my opinion, this is not transparency. It's an illusion thinking that you may think that they're being transparent and always keeping us up to date and telling us what is exactly happening. Just telling us like we're keeping it real with you, we're trying to resolve this issue every hour. This is not trying to solve this situation. Wait it out a little bit longer, then tell us what's going on. And if you tell us exactly what's going on, then yeah, that would be transparency. But just telling us, oh, we know the situation is broken, we're trying to resolve it every hour, that's not really transparent. Anyway, I think I dragged out this topic too long. So I want to touch on the positive sides of this thing and have a little bit of a discussion regarding the different classes that this game has, because they are the main reason a lot of people may consider getting a game or perhaps want to try it out. So the Pyromancer wields a fire to mark enemies, with the Devastator acting as a tank rushing into the battle. Now that we're talking about, if we're talking about the Trickster, is all about hopping into the fray, stunning and slowing enemies down, and then escaping quickly. Now the final class, of course, is the Technomancer. Is based around weaponry and tools, using long-range gear to lock down choke points and unleash a barrage of firepower of enemies taking cover. Now, in my opinion, well, it is my opinion, I went with a Technomancer, and I thought that would have been a better option. I also have tried out the Trickster. You actually see my first impressions video of the Trickster gameplay, and I actually, from comparing them to, I think Trickster is a better option, But again, that's just my opinion. I like the way there's so many abilities and more or less of customizability as well that you can do of unleashing these powers, and so they also have different varieties in them. It's pretty unique. Okay, now I have talked a little bit about this and just a little bit. It's the world tier system, and you know what? I have only positive things to say about it. World tier system is pretty much its own unique leveling design. And I think world tier system is a very good design. Basically, whenever you're playing the game, it's automatic, and anytime you level up, you go to a different world tier system. World tier system 1 to 15 is the maximum. Even world tier system 6 or even 7, I should say, I was getting a very hard time with the game. But also we have to consider this, because if you don't have such a good leveling in gear, then of course you'll die much quicker. And so I actually decided to just simply, abandon the idea of going to the world tier system 15 level. Okay, what I did is basically stayed on 6, but also during this gameplay that you're watching too, I ended up just giving a shot and playing on tier 1. Why? Because I want to feel like a badass and kill anything to everything. Now, I guess there's not much in challenge in that. Actually, there isn't. But it's still, you want to feel like a badass, don't you? So as such, it brings me into another bullet point: replayability value. This game has a fantastic replayability value because you pretty much you can replay all the missions and quests all over again. And you actually gain different rewards, different levels, and that's very good. It actually has an incentive for you to do so. So it's not just like you're doing it for a different experience, but instead you're doing it for a different reward. And I gotta say, it's very good. It means that there's going to be longevity into this game. There's also an expedition. I actually had to go with it too. I didn't complete the whole thing of the expeditions, but I did a lot of them already. Now, still, it was very valuable and interesting time for me to play with it, but still, I'm gonna be keep on playing it for the time being. Perhaps I'm sure somebody will say this. I'm sure somebody will say, "Why are you doing a review if you haven't completed all the expeditions?" Like, really? Okay, maybe I should actually get this out of the way and touch on why I'm doing the review now. Then I'll get into one of the biggest negatives about this game and why this game may actually die real quick. Well, again, that's opinion. I actually started feeling a little bit kind of burnt out of this game. Mind you, a few things is because I feel like I've been burned out over the, these looter shooter types of games, okay? So I've had my time with the Destiny, with the Division, Destiny 2, the Division 2, and so many other looter shooter games, like as an example, Anthem. Thankfully, I never got into the train wreck of the Marvel's Avengers. That's another looter shooter game, more or less. And so, I kind of have my fill with them all. Now, playing Outriders, pretty much being an extremely repetitive game, because all you really do is going from point A to B and killing more or less the same enemies. And mind you, the variety of enemies is actually pretty good as well. There's so many different varieties, so that's actually a plus as well. But the main thing I actually had difficulties is because, simply going from point A to B, it can get to you. And after doing it like 100 to 500 times, it really will get under your skin. It can get very repetitive. And after that, you'll start to dislike the game. And especially seeing the expeditions is basically timer included, and that I'll have to kill all the enemies pretty much all over again, this could give my line of thinking very negative for this game, and I didn't want to do that. And as such, I want to keep my feeling neutral, right? Not too positive, not too negative, because I feel like that's when the honeymoon is over, and that's when I think that the games should be getting reviewed. Okay, now, one of the biggest flaws in this game is the always online factor. Yes. A lot of people say like, wait, what? Like, well, this was a decision of the developers that they went with, or whoever was. No, this is an awful decision. This is not a good decision at all. Okay, basically, whenever their server they have an instability, basically this means that you will not be able to play. Whenever you're having bad time and there's some kind of internet issues, connections, or maybe you don't even have an internet connection at all, you will not be able to play the game. So, everything just lines up for negativity on this part. This is also I personally think an outdated design. I personally think that this is, whoever thought this was a good idea, you had to reconsider this. I don't know how, I don't care how, they need to implement an offline mode or an ability that does not include the always constant internet connection. Now I'm sure they're gonna make up things and say like, oh, we need this, we need to monitor your progress and stuff like that, so there'll be no cheating, no bans. And mind you, it's also a good thing that they said that they'll be having watermarks on the in front of the screen, more or less, for the cheaters out there, and they're gonna make sure that they hamper the experience of matchmaking as well for those cheaters. But again, do they really give a damn? You know, like they're just gonna cheat themselves over and over, and it's not like they're hurting anybody else's experience. They're only doing it for their own leisure, and that's it. That's enough for them, right? So in this case, I personally think that the always online factor is a giant flaw. This is automatically why the game does not deserve 10 or even 9 out of 10. And as such, I personally think that this game is just an average game. It's just more or less of a 6 or 7 out of 10. That's my review. Okay, well, that's it. That's all I got for today. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Tell me down in the comments, what did you think of the Outriders? And yeah, as always, have a good one.